One step down in this brutal schedule that is the 2022 slate for the Arkansas Razorbacks. They defeat Cincinnati 24-17. We got the guy that tells us all about the Hogs right here at the Voice of College Football, Ty Hudson, Hogville. Get on over there to hogville.net. You can look that up right here on YouTube as well. Hogville, that'll get you right there.
This was, I don't know, man. This was 4 quarters of wide receivers running around wide open. Like you said, Ben Bryant, had he been a little bit more on target, they would have racked up, 450 yards passing, probably a couple more passing touchdowns at the least. A lot of work to be done in the secondary for Arkansas. There were some other bright spots, though. I was impressed with how aggressive Arkansas was blitzing on defense. Bumper Pool, the guy had like 8-9 tackles in the first half. He ended up with like 13. Jordan Dominic, the Georgia Tech transfer, a sack and a forced fumble and a fumble recovery. How about that? So there were definitely some bright spots. But the secondary, I don't know, Mark. I once again, your guy comes on here and says, I don't know what's going on, or I say it here, or I say it on Hogville or Tuss Talk. People start, here we go again. Ty's being too critical. Look what happened. Ben Bryant made Arkansas look pretty silly in the second half. That drive out of the third quarter kind of set the stage. 12 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. It was nickel and dime down the field, and he had no issue whatsoever picking apart that secondary. And by the way, I know we're going to get to some injuries and stuff later, but Arkansas was at full strength in the first half on defense, and they were still doing that. He was just missing his targets, like you mentioned. So, there's some concern there.
And like I said, the Hogs also benefit from the worst field goal kicking team in the nation from last year. They somehow made the playoff. They had the worst field goal percentage, and they didn't fix that issue. That aside, we're focused on the Hogs. Of course, South Carolina is coming to Fayetteville coming up on Saturday. So I never really thought, for as much respect as I have for Cincinnati and for as hard as I thought both teams fought, I thought it was a tremendous game. I never really thought Arkansas was going to lose the game. I always thought that they were the better team in some capacity. KJ Jefferson turns in a nice effort, and that was much needed with 3 touchdown passes, and he ran it 18 times as well, so he gets his season off to a KJ Jefferson-like start.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the most, if it's not the most carries he's had in a game, it's up there. It's got to be top 2, top 3. I'm pretty sure it's the most carries. I don't know. Kendall Briles, the offensive coordinator, was asked this. I don't remember who asked him, but when we were talking to him, when the media was talking with him, and he said, someone asked him, how do you feel about KJ being your leading rusher? Or what do you think about that? And Kendall Briles' response is, I like to win. Basically saying any way possible, we win football games. And I get that. I understand that. And I agree with it. You got to have the ball in the hands of your playmakers, and KJ is absolutely that. But, man, 18 times, and how physical Cincinnati was, they were physical. They brought it. And I had mad respect to their defense. They absolutely tried to zero in on Arkansas's run game. Didn't succeed because as the game went on, Arkansas just wore them down. But 18 carries, and that's a lot. That's a lot of abuse. I get it. He's a big boy. We're not talking about a 6'1", scrambling, 190-pound quarterback. We're talking about a big boy. But eventually you kind of wonder, especially with what's going on at the QB2 spot, is that something you want moving forward? Your starting quarterback, who, by the way, looked good in the passing game. Do you want him taking that many carries, that much abuse week in and week out? I just don't know. And it only gets tougher from here. So,
yeah, as much as the Ben Bryant misses, especially in the first half, were noticeable, I don't remember, and I don't watch the game like you do. I'm watching like 3 games, but I watched every play of the game, and I don't sit there and chart the plays or anything like I'm sure you and others do to keep that recollection. But I don't remember thinking, okay, KJ Jefferson has missed. Of course, he missed a few throws, but I think he was pretty much on his game. Wanted to ask you about Raheem Sanders, because obviously he had a nice season last year. But, you set us up with a collection of running backs, AJ Green included, but man, they pretty much cleared the deck, and it was Raheem's game, and he had a huge one with 117 yards.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was the most carries he's had as a Razorback. Once again, another I don't know, personal best or record broken for Rocket Sanders in terms of just carries, but 20 carries, 117 yards, just under 6 yards a carry. Unfortunately, didn't get in the end zone. I hated that for him. I really was kind of hoping he'd get in there once or twice, but he wouldn't. Of course, KJ would, but he wouldn't. But he just looks the part. My only issue with him is he really tries to break it loose outside a lot. That is just like something he wants to do. He wants to go outside. He saw him do this last year, and he understood it. He was a true freshman. There'd be a decent gap for him to run through between the maybe the guard in the center or the tackle and the left guard, and he would still bounce it out. I always kind of had questions a little bit about his vision and his ability to just run the ball north and south. We know he can do it, but I feel like he should probably do it more often. We saw a little bit of that against Cincinnati on Saturday, and me and some other, pretty well-known media people were talking about it on our way to refilling our free beverages. By the way, that's a pretty cool luxury. I didn't know the media got free beverages and snack food, you name it. Pretty outstanding. Shout out to the University of Arkansas. But that's something we talked about was, man, he sure does try to bust outside a lot. Why not just take the gap, go up in between the center and the guard where it looks like the play's designed to go to. But other than that, Mark, he's got such high potential. He's someone who I think his caliber is first team all SEC, possibly all American. I think that is his ceiling. I think he's in that at the very least all SEC, wherever you want to toss him up at, first, second, or third team. And you mentioned the other backs. AJ Green, the track star of the bunch back there, only got 3 carries. He had 18 yards and 6 yards a carry. Really surprised they didn't use him more. Really thought he would get up near that 8 to 9, maybe 10 carries. But like I mentioned, they wanted to stick with KJ and Rocket. That was their game plan. And then we got to see a little bit of the true freshman, Rashad DeBinion, who had 2 carries for 16 yards. If anybody goes back, I don't know if it's available on YouTube. Someone maybe has a highlight somewhere. He makes a cut. I mean, it was myself and Kevin McPherson from Hogville.net talked about that on the postgame show. It was just a thing of beauty. I mean, it was like sliced cheese, man. I mean, he just went right through, and some guys try to make that cut and they're too sluggish and slow. He looks explosive. DeBinion's going to be special for Arkansas if he sticks out and can stay healthy. But they've got a stable of backs. They still got Dominic Johnson, Mark, another guy who's probably an all-conference caliber back. I mean, they're loaded back there. And a lot of teams in the SEC are. I get that. But Arkansas, it's time for these guys to get their opportunity to show it. And I hope they're able to do that. So they've got South Carolina coming up, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so we could, I've started us on the path position by position. I don't necessarily know if we need to go there, but of course, Traylon Burks missing was a big concern, but good feedback in fall camp about the way this group was coming together. Trey Knox had a big day with a couple touchdown receptions in this one, but of course, he's at the tight end position. Your thoughts about the receiver core?
Well, yeah, again, another area of, I don't know if I'm going to say surprise. I kind of thought somebody, Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers, their numbers would be better, but Jaden Hazelwood had a nice catch. That touchdown that he caught, I think it was a 19-yarder from KJ. It was a thing of beauty. And then they tried to give him the ball out of the receiver spot off. I think it was an end around, and it didn't really amount to much if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that. I thought he had I think that was right in the middle of me doing so. I don't remember, but he did. They're trying to get Hazelwood. The point being, they're trying to get Hazelwood more involved in different ways. Hazelwood's got speed, and we saw a little bit of it, but that catch he made was nice. Matt Landers looks to me like a guy. He's not he's not a Treylon Burks where he can fight through the defender, right? Like when he's got the ball in his hands, and he's just gonna run through you because he has that raw power. He's simply put, he's a 6'5" speed receiver. That's what he is. He's not a possession wideout. He's a guy that you get the ball to him downfield, you find a one-on-one matchup, he's gonna turn and burn. But he's not someone who's going to fight through defenders. He looks to me like, and I thought I saw this in fall camp. He's slender kind of build, not super muscular. He's not one of those type of guys. He's not a Greg Childs. He's not a Treylon Burks. But a London Crawford, for those of you diehard Hog fans, you guys remember him, 6'2", 6'3", built like a linebacker playing receiver. That's not what he is. But I was a little surprised he wasn't targeted a little bit more, and he ends up with 3 catches for 43 yards. But what we did see in total, we had 1, 2, 3, only 4 receivers targeted, and 3: Matt Landers, Jaden Hazelwood, and Warren Thompson. Only 3 wide receivers were targeted in this game. No Katron Jackson, none of the freshmen. So, yeah, we kept hearing about how they're going to spread the ball around, and they did to the running backs. They got the running backs involved in the passing game a little bit, and, of course, Trey Knox. But, yeah, a little bit surprised we didn't see a little bit more of that against Cincinnati, them, targeting these receivers a little bit more.
And what's going to be kind of odd is that SEC fans, close your ears for a second, that Cincinnati may actually have a faster defense than South Carolina, so the Hogs may have faced a faster defense against a group of 5 team than they will in the SEC this week. But I want to get to, Ty, what's got to be the major concern here. So Spencer Rattler comes to town. He's got to be a top 10 to 15 quarterback. Jaheim Bell, one of the best playmakers in the SEC. And the defense showed some issues against Cincinnati. South Carolina didn't have the best performance against Georgia State. They didn't break free in this game until the fourth quarter and break away. They had trouble rushing the football, 2.5 yards per carry. Spencer Rattler threw a couple picks, but you're concerned about, of course, Jalen Catalon, him missing from the second half of last week's game. So concerns about the defense facing a capable offense coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you look at, and I have not had a chance. I've only caught glimpses of that South Carolina Georgia State game, and only heard just a little bit here and there. Read some stuff on Twitter. I understand that Rattler did not have a very good game. Couple picks, 20. I think he threw the ball almost 40 times, completed like a little bit north of maybe 55% or something, but not a great QBR either. I just don't know what to expect in this one. Of course, I don't want to give away my pick on who I think is going to win yet until Friday, but I do. It's hard to do this and not say that despite Catalon and, by the way, Miles Slusher, 2 guys in the secondary being out, it's hard to not be a little bit concerned because they're going to try and throw that ball. They're going to try and sling it. Like you said, their run game not overly effective. They, I guess, struggled to get anything going really on offense until maybe the third quarter. But this will be fascinating to see how they try to pick apart Arkansas secondary. Spencer Rattler, say what you want about him, we know he's a capable quarterback. So, in Arkansas secondary performance, not great against Cincinnati. So, really, what do we know about anybody right now? I guess is the question. Not much. But Arkansas cannot, in my opinion, and I do agree with you, Cincinnati is faster. I think they might even be better than South Carolina in certain areas. But I just don't know what to expect just yet. I'm going to have to sit down, talk with some folks, watch the game, and kind of go down the rabbit hole, see what we got. But this is another tough one. Well, I should say it's not a coin flip for me. I'll say that. It's not a coin flip game for me, a close 50-50 kind of game. But there are some matchups, as you mentioned, that will be fascinating to see between Arkansas and South Carolina.
2 of the emerging coaches in the SEC as well. Shane Beamer did a great job with what he had coming in. Just, you get thrown a roster, you pretty much don't have any of your own guys that first year, and he pulled it together, won a bowl game against North Carolina with 4 quarterbacks, and then Sam Pittman, we look back a couple of years, pretty much the same deal there. He was able to just be handed a roster and somehow make it a whole lot better on the scoreboard than the previous guy. So two really good coaches going at it.
Yeah, not saying, I mean, yeah, all the love in the world for Sam Pittman, right? I mean, that's what the fans will tell you here. They love Sam Pittman, especially with what they had in Chad Morris. That is it's not hard to, I think you could have brought in, I don't know, just about anybody, and they would have been thankful to move on from Chad Morris. But you're right, what Sam inherited, it's amazing. I mean, we're sitting here talking about how they struggled and they still beat a capable, ranked Cincinnati football team. 2 years ago, that was a pipe dream. 3 years ago, that was what the hell are you talking about? That's where we're at now. That's incredible. That is that's just a tip of the cap to Sam Pittman's what that is. I mean, the job that he's done at Arkansas is incredible. I know you and I talk about that a lot, but it is simply incredible that what he's been able to do. We'll see what happens from here on out. We'll see what, maybe they're better, a lot better than we think, which I think they're better than what we saw Saturday for sure. There's also the possibility that, you've got some things you got to overcome, and those could eventually catch up to you. Maybe they catch up to you against South Carolina. Maybe they catch up to you against A&M. Of course, you got Bama coming into town. If you've got stuff going on, if you don't have it fixed by then, you're in real trouble against someone like the Crimson Tide. But, yeah, I mean, Arkansas's he's just such a perfect fit. Sam is, and Beamer's done a good job at South Carolina. You're right. The mess they inherited at quarterback a year ago, I remember that just being an ongoing theme for them. And they seem to think they have their guy in Spencer Rattler. And
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, Mark, because you look at the score. If you'd have told me a week ago today, hey, South Carolina's going to go out and beat Georgia State 35-14, right? 21-point margin of victory, cover the spread, I would have been ecstatic. We would have been giddy. We all would. Then you go and you watch the game, and you just see how it happened. And of course, hey, I'll tell you this, it was a great night for our business. It was a great night for merchandise. It was a great night for Beamer Ball, right? You see us rocking it here on this Monday. But when you look at the offensive production or lack thereof, just 300 total yards, just about 79 rushing yards, 3.3 yards per carry. The offensive line woes that we talked about all preseason continuing, it almost felt like from last year into game one. I thought Spencer Rattler played fine. And Mark, honestly, a lot of the reason they were able to generate anything offensively is because of his pure talent. You saw him on the run, moving out of the pocket. I mean, he is elite. The arm talent is there. You can see why he was such a highly rated player, if you will. But, yeah, I mean, certainly coming out of that ball game, listen, you're happy to be 1-0, right? You're happy to get the dub. But the way you win and how you did it, I think, is certainly a cause for concern. And you were not exposed against Georgia State. Your special teams sort of bailed you out. But that's something that obviously has to be corrected and corrected quickly, is the offensive line play. And at this point, I think the question turns to just, can it be? Because it was a problem last year. It's the same guys from a season ago. And now you go into this year and you see those same deficiencies and those same problems rear their ugly head yet again. So I feel like it's some sort of mixed emotions here on this Monday. I think Gamecock Nation, we're all happy and ecstatic to be 1-0. But again, you watch that game and you see just sort of how it happened. The good news is this, Mark. You watch this offense, at least I feel like the skill position players are in place to have a good offense. The defense also played a really good game. And again, special teams, Beamer Ball, you feel confident with Shane Beamer and Pete Limbo. It's going to be one of the best units, or one of the best position groups, if you will, the best units, well-coached units in college football. But it's just, can this offense get it going? And after a preseason filled with all this hype and expectations because of who you added, I just don't know that you really met or even came close to meeting those expectations in game one. So, listen, it was week one for everybody, right? There was a lot of sloppy play. You saw it all over college football. The bottom line is you are 1-0 going into this Arkansas game, but certainly some things left to be desired from that offensive performance.
Back to the offensive line, Chris, because I think we hit the key to this game coming up. And, of course, there's all sorts of keys. But when I look at what South Carolina did, and when I watched didn't see a play of the South Carolina game, truth be told, but I watched every play of the Arkansas-Cincinnati game, and Arkansas can get after it on the front seven. So when they were putting heat on the Cincinnati quarterback, they're in good shape. But when they weren't, man, they got exposed in the secondary. Cincinnati's quarterback, Ben Bryant, if he hits on other throws, he missed a ton of throws, still threw for 325. He could have been a 500-yard passer in that game. they could have easily lost that game. So if Spencer Rattler gets time,
Yeah.
and of course, he's not a statue. Like you say, he's athletic and move around. So he's going to create his own space at times. But pass protection, big in this one.
Oh, for sure. And again, I loved what they did in regards to Spencer Rattler getting out of the pocket. But a lot of times, unfortunately, hey, he's going to have to be good throwing on the run because this offensive line can't give him time. Again, surrendering 3 sacks to Georgia State. Like I mentioned, just 79 rushing yards. And again, Mark, I think a lot of us sit here on this Monday just a little bit confused, befuddled, struggling to find the words because, and it's just one game again, but we saw this time and time again last year. And again, it is the same group of guys. So you hear coaches say all the time, the greatest improvement for a football team is made between week 1 and week 2. Hopefully that's the case here. I mean, again, like you mentioned, Cincinnati showed you can throw the football in Arkansas. And I think when you look at guys like Jaheim Bell, Austin Stogner, Josh Vann, Antoine Wells, Jalen Brooks emerging in the first game, Xavier Legette, Amarian Brown, you've got the weapons. Marshawn Lloyd, I thought looked really good. If they get any sort of blocking, I do think this is an offense that can have success, but it all starts up front. And again, Mark, I think there is a reason to have cause for concern when you struggle the way you did against Georgia State. And the coaches admittedly said after the game, they felt like they were going to have problems running the football. What does that say going into SEC play against the likes of Arkansas and Georgia, who are undoubtedly better on the line of scrimmage and deeper on the line of scrimmage than a Georgia State was, all due respect to the Panthers. So that'll be the big question this week, Mark, is just simply put, again, like you mentioned, Cincinnati showed you can throw the football. I think the Gamecocks have the weapons to expose that Arkansas secondary. Will Spencer Rattler get the time to make that happen? That's the question.
So you like the defensive performance. They held Georgia State down, really held them down in the second half as well. Anybody in particular that stands out that maybe you weren't expecting?
I thought the linebackers played really well. Debo Williams at linebacker, the Delaware transfer, he was flying around. Brad Johnson, Mo Kaba, that was a position that I feel like has been sort of a deficiency. Just call it for what it is over the last couple of years. You've always sort of had one guy, but when you talk about run defense and the struggles there, linebacker, again, has left things to be desired. I thought those guys played pretty well. Early, first drive, especially Georgia State went right down the field, was running it down your throat. I thought the defensive line took over that ball game as they should have, and the run defense actually wasn't that bad. But it's kind of funny, Mark. You look at the game statistically, and the Gamecocks surrendered 200 yards on the ground, and it just goes to show you how bad the run defense was that we're sitting here touting a 200-yard giving up performance as that was a good game for the run defense. But a lot of the yards came late, to be fair. But either way, I did think the defensive line took over later in that game. Georgia State, obviously, that was their bread and butter. What they wanted to do was run the football. And then the secondary, a secondary that was top 10 in the country in pass defense a season ago. I thought they performed pretty much up to par. I mean, obviously the quarterback Granger for Georgia State was not a guy that was gonna beat you down the field, right? Struggle with his accuracy, but Cam Smith looked like Cam Smith. Nick Eamon is a freshman to keep an eye on the rest of this season. The freshman from Irmo, I thought he played really, really good football. Had a big tackle on that 4th and 1 early in the ball game. You even saw Stone Blanton get in there at linebacker late in the game as a true freshman. But all in all, I thought it was a pretty on par defensive performance. I mean, Mark, not to pat myself on the back here, but I picked the final score of this game 34-14, and Carolina won the game 35-14. So, I mean, I thought the defense about looked how I expected. We knew Georgia State, they were going to get their yards on the ground because that's what they do. Sean Elliott had a good game plan, had their team ready to play. Jamias Williams, the former South Carolina Gamecock, now at running back for Georgia State. He looked really good. He's a really, really good player back there. But, all in all, again, I'd call it a successful day for the Gamecocks defense. We'll know more this weekend and then against Georgia once you play some stiffer competition. But I think what the defense showed is what I'm expecting. They're going to be a strength for this football team. They're not elite by any means. They're not a Georgia level. But I feel confident in saying this is a defense that's not going to lose South Carolina football games. They will be a strength for you. And if the offense, can again, carry their end, if you will, and hold up their end of the bargain, I should say, then I think you'll have a lot of success. But all in all, a good night for the Gamecocks defense.
No sacks for the defense, but again, Georgia State's running the football most of the time until they had to throw 6 tackles for loss, though, and really held down the passing attack, of course, with only 111 yards, 7 of 29. So
yeah, and I would say it wasn't a perfect night defensively. I mean, I think what you've most got to shore up on that side is, a lot of the misdirection stuff and keeping contain on the edge. South kind of lost contain on the defensive front, and going up against a KJ Jefferson, a guy that can really move and he can beat you both through the air and with his legs. That's something I'm sure they'll be focusing on this week, and they'll have a good game plan ready to go. But yeah, I mean, all in all, again, it's not like you let Georgia State just run up and down the field on you, especially as we felt like when you got that lead, when you extended your lead, Georgia State had to throw the football. It was pretty evident they weren't going to do anything against you. So again, all in all, I would say a successful night for the Gamecocks defense. There's always adjustments to be made, but yeah, I would say a solid performance for Clayton White's group for sure.
So you basically nailed the pick in week 1, but like you say, the 15.5, I think that was the number, 15.5.
12
and a half points didn't come the way that you expected. A bit of a first half into the third and fourth quarter struggle for the Gamecocks, but they got it done. So now we're looking at pretty healthy for an SEC game, and for two teams that had fairly comparable records, 7-6, 9-4, 8 points coming into Fayetteville. So how does that hit you right out of the gate on Monday?
Mark, I'll be honest, I'm surprised it wasn't more after the way the Gamecocks looked on the offensive front. And I know Arkansas looked very beatable, obviously, from people I talked to. I didn't get to watch a ton of their game on Saturday afternoon, admittedly, but I thought it was going to be double digits. I thought it was going to be 11 or 12 points, to be honest with you. So to hear it come out at 8 is it's interesting. I mean, listen, I've looked at this game all preseason as a toss-up, and I still feel that way going into it. If South Carolina can shore up the issues on the offensive line, they got a great chance to win this football game for sure. I think you will not see many folks picking the Gamecocks this week. So the number, I wasn't stunned. I was a little bit surprised because I was asked early Sunday, where would you project this line? And I said 10 or 11, admittedly, like I said. So, we'll see. It's interesting. I think Vegas, when you look at that, I think Vegas, obviously, they have Arkansas, the home favorite. Understandable. That's what we all were expecting. We knew the Gamecocks would be a dog. But I think what it's also saying is Vegas does expect South Carolina to improve from week 1 to week 2. And every football team, right? I mean, again, your greatest improvement comes between week 1 and week 2. Any coach will tell you that. So we'll see if they can shore things up on the offensive side. I mean, that is the greatest area of concern, Mark. And that's where my frustration and a lot of others came, because it's interesting, Mark, there aren't many times, I don't ever remember leaving a 21-point victory as frustrated as I was Saturday night. And I think, again, whether fair or unfair, it's just simply because of the preseason expectations and the hype and everything surrounding this team with the additions of Rattler and Stogner and Wells and Christian Beal-Smith and Corey Rucker, and the list just goes on and on and on. And to, again, see some of the same issues, or really just the same issue, rear its ugly head. And I know we point to Spencer Rattler and the interceptions. One of them really wasn't his fault. The ball was dropped by the receiver, and the other one, hey, he looks back at the film and you can watch the play. He had the dump off right in front of him. Instead, he went for the risky throw and he paid for it. I'm not really worried about Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler will be fine. And it's, again, thanks to his ability, they were able to score the way they did. But it just comes back to the offensive line. It's a line of scrimmage league. You got to block to win. You've got weapons. You're not going to be able to get the most out of them, and you will not see the true potential of this offense. You will not meet that true potential if you cannot block up front. So I think Vegas is expecting improvement, but I'll be honest with you, I was surprised to see that line open at single digits. But again, Vegas knows, so we'll see if they nail it again this week.
Chris Phillips joining us from the Spurs Up Show and the Daily Crow. Join him right there. You see his Twitter handle as well. That's the destination for South Carolina and SEC football talk. Chris, I love the coaching matchup. I love what both of these coaches did with shoot. You know what the deal is when you show up and it's a new job. You typically get a new job in college football because the other guy didn't do the job. So you got a dysfunctional roster. Sure, they both had a little bit of talent to work with, but considering what the deal is in the SEC, they both got thrown a roster and they immediately just made the teams better, both of them. So two up-and-coming coaches in the SEC going at it.
Yeah, both have done a really good job, and I think both are really good fits for their respective schools. I mean, obviously what Sam Pittman has done, and he's such a likable guy. I mean, you heard the post-game interview over the weekend where he's like, I think I'm going to go have me a cold beer. It's just like, how can you not like a guy like that? And he's such a good fit for Arkansas and what they want to do. And then obviously Shane Beamer at South Carolina, the culture he's built and all the positive energy and positive momentum. So it really is two up-and-comers, two rising programs, two rising stars in the coaching ranks, I would say. And this is a big game. I mean, listen, a lot of fans labeled this game on the South Carolina side as the biggest game of this season. And many folks, whether fair or unfair, their hopes of this season are hinging on what happens Saturday in Fayetteville. Now, again, I would go and caution folks, hey, win or lose, it doesn't guarantee one way or the other which direction your season's going to go. But it would be massive for South Carolina, a team that last year struggled so mightily on the road. And it would be huge. There's no other way to put it. It would be huge. And especially after week one where you got sort of mixed feelings, you're going to have to play a good football game and play like a sound football team to go beat Arkansas at their place. You're just going to have to. So we will continue to learn a lot about this Gamecocks football team. But again, two great coaches, and I think two coaches that will have a lot of success at their respective programs. But, it's a big game for both schools. Both programs feel like they're on the up and up and on the rise, and winning a game like this only helps to further that cause.
So, Chris, when you take into consideration the 8 points and you think about there's one team in Arkansas who was hit with a sledgehammer, Cincinnati came off the bus hitting, man. That team is fast and furious. That was a tough game. Not saying that South Carolina had a breeze or put it in cruise control because they had a tough matchup. But, there was certainly different levels of adversity there in the first game. Do you think that favors one team or the other? One's battle tested more. One had a little bit less of a deal to work with in week one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess quality of opponent, right? Does Arkansas feel like they know a little bit more about their football team than South Carolina because they played a Cincinnati and Carolina played a Georgia State? I mean, maybe that helps, but, obviously it's a different animal for both sides when it's your first game in SEC play. And of course, this is the SEC opener for both. So I think both teams will learn a lot about themselves. It's just a different animal, right? South Carolina may not be one of the elites or one of the top teams in the conference, but it's still just a different level of competition, right? I mean, we saw what the SEC did over the weekend, and if LSU could have just somehow made an extra point and gone and won in overtime, the SEC would have went undefeated. So, maybe you give the advantage there to Arkansas, but I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. I just think that this is one, like I said, we'll learn a lot about both sides. And again, how much improvement is made from week one to week two? That's the big question I have. And I think that's what's going to go a long way to determine this football game. And I think the more the mystery is South Carolina, right? I think Arkansas feels confident after the year they had last year, KJ Jefferson at quarterback. They do have question marks, sure, but they feel confident in what they've got on their football team. It's South Carolina who I look at and say, well, what are you? What are you going to be this year? Is this going to be another fringe fighting to get to 6 wins? Or, again, are you going to show improvement and show, hey, the track to winning 8, maybe even possibly 9, overachieving and maybe doing sort of like what Arkansas did last year, it's still a very real possibility. So, I mean, that's the fun in it, Mark, right? It's a week-to-week game. We all know, hey, we're sitting here on this Monday. Oh, man, the offensive line can't block anybody. The offense, what's going on? If South Carolina finds a way to beat Arkansas, ain't nobody going to give a damn what it looked like when you beat Georgia State. All that's going to matter is, hey, the Gamecocks are 2-0, and here comes the Dogs coming to Willie B. So, it's a great opportunity for this South Carolina football team and this program. And again, it'd be a massive win, and really, really excited to see what happens in Fayetteville at noon Eastern on Saturday.
He is Chris Phillips. Catch him on the Spurs Up Show and the Daily Crow. And then you see the Twitter handle right there. Got to follow him on Twitter. Chris, appreciate you stopping by. It should be a good one on Saturday.
Mark, always a pleasure, man. Anytime. Appreciate you.
All right, man. I'll let you